All right, so I usually, create little lab environments to kind of play around and get used to some of the devices and equipment that I may not be so familiar with. So what you see up here are the Fortigate VPN firewall appliance in a virtual environment. So you have 3 different sites, 1, 2, and 3. Site 1 has a Cisco router. Site 2 and 3 have a Juniper MX Router. Just trying to get some hands-on with that equipment. Obviously my experience is mostly Cisco, not necessarily for Juniper, but I'm trying to work on fixing that. All right, so all the connections here go through the live internet on the virtual environment on JNS3. So if we were going into the console, so that's the Google DNS 8.8.8.8, and as you can tell, that is actually resolving and working. We'll try the actual URL. And as you can see, it can resolve the URL to the IP address without issues. All right, so starting out on the left side on site 1, you can see the addresses based on the little map that's up there. And we have an interface that's connected on G1/0 with a 16.0.1, and that is live. My virtual environment can be slow at times, so even though it's not resolving, we just give it a minute, it'll come back to it and it works just fine. So in this instance, just want to ping the first interface that's connected to. That works. We do the WAN side, fix. That works without any issues, and the whole point for this exercise for me was to work on a VPN connection from site 1 to site 2 and site 1 to site 3, and then between all sites, just creating those VPN tunnels that would make each individual network communicate with the other site as if they were on the same LAN. You have the one interface on port 1 and the LAN on port 3. So if we go down to VPNs, tunnels, and you can see both tunnels. Never mind one of these, I think this one right here. Yep, 148, this is going to site 3. It's just a mislabel. All the numbers and the IP addresses are working just fine. It's just simply that the name that I used on the tunnel was incorrect. Site 1 to site 2 and site 1 to site 3. Both of them are up. If we click here, we can see the traffic that's actually being sent from site 1 to site 2. So if we were going here to ping from the router on site 1 to the router on site 2, 1 for the router. We'll give it a second, of course. All right, so far it's not working how it had worked in the past. I'm not really sure why that is, but it's interesting that even if I shut it off, like I'm gonna do right now, even if I shut it off, bring down the entire tunnel, because I have traffic attempting to go through, if I refresh the page, the phase 1, which is the authentication part of the tunnel, it actually goes up because it's trying to establish connection and actually saying that it's just the encryption side that's not up. And in order for that side to be up, I will have to so in this case, once I refresh the page, we should start seeing traffic coming through, and eventually we just start seeing those pings coming back. So the phase 2 just came up. If we go to site 2 and check for that very same tunnel, site 2 to site 1, it says it's up with no traffic coming through. What about if I go to that router on site 2 and send the traffic back? And some of these issues are, issues with the virtual environment, not necessarily with the appliance itself or, any of these devices. It's just the nature of the beast in my little lab. So this is taking longer than I expected. Refresh. So there is outgoing data that's trying to reach out. We have seen sometimes it's worth, like as I mentioned, it's worth rebooting those appliances, which I'm gonna do that. And let's see, I'm not gonna change anything else that I'm doing on PuTTY. So we'll just do a quick reload on number 2 and reload on number 1, and we should lose connectivity to those shortly. I'm not gonna cut the video because I wanna make sure that if it works, we can see it live. So site 2 and site 1. And it seems like it's going to work because that's exactly what it done before. Yeah, I'm not gonna log in until I see these pings. There we go. There we go. So again, that's sometimes it's just an issue of having an environment like this. Still good practice though, right? Sometimes you don't know, is it me or is it the application or what's going on? All right, site 1 to site 3, it's still down. Site 2 to site 1, which is what we're looking at now, is operational just fine. Let's go to site 3 and then send the pings to site 2 and see if that tunnel comes up. So we do 1, sending it, and it's pinging. So that means what I was saying actually worked. So the actual tunnel, the phase 2 was down completely. As soon as I sent some traffic through the tunnel, it stood up and it's operational without me having to turn up the tunnel or do anything with it. All right, so we have site 2 to site 1 working just fine, and site 2 to site 3 working just fine. So how about from site 1 to site 2? Yep, also operational, no problem. So we have 151, and let's see the data coming through with a refresh now. All right, so it does work. It's pretty good. I like it. I like it a lot. All right, so the actual web browser makes it a little easier sometimes to troubleshoot and to establish some of the configurations. So in this case, I want to ping from site 1 to site 3, as you see here. Right now it's saying that that tunnel is down because there isn't any traffic going through right now. So as you can see, the IP address 148 on the WAN side, and this would be a 2.1 on the actual router, right? Looking at that little diagram. So what I want to do is ping from router 1, 16.2.1, which is the actual router on site 3. And what this should do is establish the actual tunnel since there is traffic coming through. And I understand the virtual environment can be slow at times, but it does work. And once this comes up, maybe we have to turn it back on manually and see if that works. Give it another shot. All right, so this side is being a little bit stubborn and I don't see any traffic coming through there. So let's see if we can send traffic from site 3 back to site 1. Site 3 router, and it seems like this one is already sending traffic to site 2. We'll stop that. And then we send it to site 1. And sometimes when it doesn't work, all I have to do is reboot the actual device on the JNS3 and it works just fine. There you go. It just took a minute to reply. So let's see if we see any traffic coming through. And sure it does. There is the traffic, outgoing data and incoming data. Let's look at router 1 now again. There we go. That's much better. All right, and so now that I'm sending all these pings, we should see the outgoing data increasing a whole bunch of the over here too. Yeah, perfect. Awesome. All right, so that's how you check that interface. I'll go ahead and stop this right there. Router 2 is actually pinging back to site 1, and you can see the increase here on the incoming data for that tunnel, 2249. Let's shoot it from this side and let's see. 1.1. Again, this might take a minute to pick up, but once it picks up, it should be all fine. 2291. There we go. There we go. Now we can see activity going on. All right, so those VPNs, the way to set up those VPNs was using the actual wizard. It wasn't too bad, just naming the actual VPN, site to site, which is what I selected, or you can do hub and spokes, remote access, and then it has a pre-configuration settings up here for either Fortigate or Cisco. Then your remote IP address, which it seems like most of these VPNs, they all work the same way. They want to know what is the public IP address of the remote IP so that it can communicate with it. They want to know what interface you're going out of, so I'm just going to put something in there. 16. This is site 1, so we will go with the remote will be 192.168.241.47, and it's already a duplicate, so I understand that. Let's go with this, and it recognized that IP range lives on the port 1. We can use signatures with a certificate authority, which is something I want to do in the future, kind of get a little more hands-on with that, or simply pre-shared key or a passphrase that can be used on both sides of the tunnel to authenticate. right? So in this case, we do a simple word, and then it wants to ask, what is your local interface? What is your LAN? So I just simply select the LAN port or 3, and it already knows the range for that IP range for the local area network, and any other sub networks that you had. If you had a phone network, like a phone VLAN or any other VLANs that you need to add, you just simply add them in there. Then the remote subnet, which is a remote, the location that you're trying to access. What is not the public side, not the WAN side, but the LAN side, bro. And I love that you can just use the /24 or the 255.255.255.0, which just seems long and just exhausting. And that's all it takes on this side. You do the same settings on the other side with the information from this side as a remote, and that's as easy as it is to just set that up. You can bring up the interface, bring them up or down by just going in here and then bringing down the entire tunnel if you want to do this. And what I have found is that even if you do this, even if you tear down this tunnel, the tunnel does have a time to live, so you can set that up according to what works for you. But even if you shut it down, in this case, it will stand back up the minute that some traffic comes through. Alright, so the beauty about using the wizard is that it does many things for you on the background. So other than the authentication, it does the policies and routing, which you would have to do manually if you weren't doing the wizard. So meaning that for your routing, you will have to go into a static route and then create all of these that were automatically created by the wizard. I didn't have to touch them. And then for the actual security, the firewall policies, you can actually see all of these that were all created automatically, minus this one, using the wizard, which is why it's so cool to use that. And here you can see these policies increasing traffic as well. Right? You can see how this traffic changes. This one is site 1, 3112 down here. So that's increasing from site 1 to site 2. We'll do another refresh. Yeah, perfect. And then what happens if we were actually blocking that? You can also see, here we go again with the lagging. So let's pick one that works. So we are pinging from site 2 to site 1. All right, so let's see what happens when we stop the traffic coming in from site number 3. So we have router 3 pinging, that is for site 2. So we look at the policies, firewall policy. It looks like it's this one right here. This is not sending, so this is the only one sending. 9173. This is the policy. All right. So if we go into this policy, which it says it's the source traffic, it's site 2 to site 3 remote, which is from the remote. This is the incoming, and then 2 the destination, which is my local. So it's always all traffic accept. So we go in here and select deny and see what happens. And it seems like all the pings have stopped. Let's double check that one more time. We're sending and no traffic is coming through. So we go back in and enable it. We know it does work, and it's going to ask me for inspection, not for this lab. And yeah, there you go. Here comes the traffic. It does work. Very good. So there you have it. If you never work with it, it's kind of fun. It's a very, very good experience to have. And it can be applied in many, many different environments. You know, so it seems like a very common scenario to use, right? So thank you for watching.